Hello and welcome to the One Deeper podcast. Today's episode is This is Your Brain on Plants. My guest today is Federico Zamberlan, and we talk about all things drugs, caffeine, other drugs, psychedelics, states of consciousness, what is consciousness, and many more interesting tidbits. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did, and I look forward to many more discussions about this and other topics with Federico. So please enjoy this conversation with Federico Zamberlan. And we're live. Anyway, how are you feeling? Had a late night last night,
Oh
I guess.
yeah, it was my first king's birthday
All right.
since I arrived here to the Netherlands. So yeah, I really wanted to live the entire experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super tired. I went to
I-
a party with a couple of friends that I have here. Yeah, it was nuts, but I'm. It has consequences, obviously.
obviously. I should have. I should have celebrated, but I had so much to do. I just couldn't.
No, please come on, don't worry.
But anyway, so I'm glad you had a good time. But what I want to talk to you about, because like I was super surprised when I was just like looking at your research, how much it has to do with psychedelics, right?
Yes. That-
But like, okay, so I have a lot of, I have like, I have a lot of like questions and
I can
interests,
imagine. Yes.
and
Usually
like,
that happens when people discovers what I'm doing with my research.
no, because like okay, so I'm not like my interest is not actually like a hobbyist interest, right? Like because obviously it's a hobbyist because I'm not a professional researcher, but
No, come on, yeah.
but it's just like because I've had a long experience with psychedelics, but I've never really had the opportunity to talk to. So my exposure and my knowledge is mostly from podcasts and books and stuff, and I've never had the opportunity to talk to someone who has done this, who is really done look at the research properly, right? So I'm pretty curious. Um, do you have you listened to like some of the episodes of? There's some amazing podcasts done by Tim Ferriss
Uh-huh.
where he interviews like some of the guys like Roland Griffiths, some of the guys who are doing the psychedelic research at John Hopkins and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll send you the links to those. Maybe you might like to listen to them later.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
anyway,
I'm
all right. So
familiar with the research they are doing there, but yeah, it's the first time I hear about that podcast. But
I'll send you the stuff. Like, and there's a couple of books that I wanted to read too. There's one called Your Mind on Plants, I think. Um, so actually, I'm actually curious about if you know anything about. Let's talk about the most common psychedelic, right? The one that everyone uses is caffeine,
oh,
right?
well, it's a psychoactive compound, that's for sure.
Right, right.
Um, and yeah, and it's produced. It will be addictive, and yeah, that's a very good example. Actually, I like it. Um,
So
let's
what do we know about caffeine? Like, what
What
do
do
we
we
know
know about
about?
caffeine? Well, it works more or less. We have to understand that every drug, or like the huge part of them, they work trying to bind to the same proteins that endogenous molecules that we have in our body are using as their natural targets.
Mhm.
So, in the same way that neurons can communicate each other through serotonin, um, there's and psychedelics could work on those receptors that are already are they are not waiting for LSD or psilocybin, but actually for other serotonin. The same happens with caffeine. Basically, from what I understand, there is this molecule called ATP that it's the usual. It's how do you say it? It's like fuel for the cells. They really
Yeah,
need that molecule for produce different kind of actions. You
yeah,
can think in ATP as the exchange currency
yeah. Exactly.
in the biological process.
As far as I understand it, ATP is like the currency of energy, right? And then
Exactly.
basically, if you take cyanide, it stops. that cycle from happening.
Yeah,
I think. Anyway, sorry, sidetrack, but yeah,
yeah. If you take cyanide, it binds.
like how it kills you. How it kills you is like it stops your cells from being able to use the.
It takes
Uh,
the position of the oxygen in the hemoglobin and things like that,
okay, fine,
because
right.
it's
That's
super
right.
nucleophilic.
Okay.
And well, with
Anyway, definitely.
caffeine and ATP happens something quite similar. At some point, the already used ATP molecules are floating around, and there's this protein trying to check the concentration of these molecules. That's how your body perceives that you are tired and maybe it's time you should go to sleep. If there are
Mm.
a lot of pieces of broken ATP around, so it seems like we already did enough for today. Caffeine tries to put over those receptors, so the body is not so aware of how tired you are.
All right. Okay. That's interesting. So it basically just pushes the feeling of like of being
Exactly.
tired. So so when you come later when the so what's the half life of caffeine in your body? It's like
I
5 hours,
I
something
really
so,
don't know.
something like that.
Probably it depends a lot of every one of us, the different like metabolism we have, and even probably tolerance. But yeah, I really don't know.
Okay, so like when people have very different opinions about let's say drugs, right? And then if you tell them like if you ask someone about let's say psilocybin, they'll be like, oh my god, no, I don't do drugs. Are you crazy? That's terrible. And then I'll be like, okay, well, do you drink coffee or like do you drink alcohol? Like,
Exactly.
uh,
My favorite definition of drug is that anything that you are introducing into your body that it's not food. That's or maybe it could be food, but if you are not eating that food just for keeping you alive, just for satisfaction, that's a drug too. So only those molecules that are totally necessary for keeping your body alive, those that are given like the nutrients and the energy, okay, those are the only ones we shouldn't consider as a drug. Any other thing with any other purpose, that's a drug.
so I mean, like even food, your state of mind is very different depending on what the kind of like the kind of food you eat, right? Like,
Yes, there's a work, a really, really amazing research line from Nora Volkov. She's neuroscientist researcher in the United States. She's director of the National Institute of Mental Health, and she was the one in charge of all that research that it was done about the concentration of different D2, sorry, dopamine receptors in the brain and the correlation that that has with different kinds of addictions. She was using positron emission tracking, the PET, to
mhm.
figure out what is was happening in the people with different addictions. And yeah, she showed that, for example, obviously cocaine reduced those receptors, and actually food with a lot of sugar, people who is reporting obesity, they are showing that reduction in the D2 receptors density. So this produces
It's
almost the
interesting.
same on the brain.
So the way I think about it is like I think of like your eyes and your mouth and your nose, your senses basically, as information about the environment that you're in to your body, right? So I think of food as information about my current state of affairs, right? So like if you
I
so if
like
you
that one. Yeah.
if I'm giving my body like a lot of good nutritious food, right? Like let's say I'm giving it proteins, right? Like I think of it as I'm telling my body, okay, there's an abundant situation around me. There's a lot of animals around me, which means the environment is probably pretty healthy. There's like I'm not in a like I think it neurologically calms me down. It's like, okay, I can tell that at some level like
Hmm.
you're not you're not worried for your life. Like
Something that it's where like all psychiatrists and all like psychiatric research, it's focusing now in what is happening in the guts.
mm,
Your digestive system has a lot of different bacteria. Many of them are totally like necessary and are they are not harmful. Actually, it's all the opposite. They are super beneficial for us. And there is already some studies found in some correlations in which, yeah, there are different psychiatric disorders, mainly those related with different kinds of schizophrenia and the kind of microbiome or something like that they call it, that they can find in your intestines. And for example, if serotonin, one of the most important neurotransmitters we have, actually the biggest concentration of that, around 90%, it's not in the brain, but it's in the guts. The first time that they found the serotonin in the brain, they thought that it was a mistake, that actually it was a contamination from another sample.
Hmm.
So it has a lot of sense to think that maybe our state of mind, it could be totally related with what is happening in our digestive system. And actually, our guts, they have their own small autonomous nervous system that it will have like different uses. For example, if at some point you faint, because you consume something that it was kind of poison, okay, the stomach is still has the ability to send the signal that you have to throw up, for
Right,
example.
right, 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 right.
um, and what else? So yeah, now there's a lot of research focusing on the guts. Something that we want to do in Argentina at some point, or maybe in Brazil, it's going to be easier. There's a lot of research done with ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is has a huge cultural load as a psychedelic because probably you're going to throw up, and you're going to throw up a lot. So a lot of stuff are happening in your stomach. So it will be super interesting to acquire brain data and electrogastro signals
Right.
at the same time. Probably we will explain much more about the experience if we have that data in consideration.
Like, so, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the internal lining of your gut is basically an interface with the environment, right?
Totally
And it makes sense that there is some sort of information gathering mechanism there where it's like it tries to figure out what's going on in your environment by what you eat and like what's happening. So, for example, I practice fasting quite a bit. So like I'll do like 5 days, 6 day fast sometimes just with this water. And I mean, obviously, I can like 2 or 3 days into it without food, I can immediately start to notice like a psychological change in my behavior and the way I think about things. Like after like on like day 4 without food, I noticed that my sleep goes to shit, right? So like, but the thing is, I know I'm not sleeping well, but my level of like noradrenaline has increased to a point where it's just like I'm just completely alert, right? So I'll go to bed at like 9, wake up at 2 in the morning, completely refreshed, right? Completely alert, and because my brain is like, yo, you need to go find something to eat because you haven't
we
eaten
have
in five.
priorities, dude. Please focus. You know.
Yeah, you haven't eaten in 5 days, right? So, so like so one time I had this experience. I was like 6 days into just a water fast, and then one of my friends sent me a text like, "Hey man, do you want to hang out?" Right? And my train of thought was because I realized my body is just trying to conserve energy, right? And every decision I make takes energy. Like, it's like so my brain started to think like, do I want to hang out? And then I was like, no, I want to hang out. Then if I don't want to hang out, do I want this person in my life? Like, do I should I like does
It's
this
extreme.
person matter? Does this person matter? Like it has this like clarifying sort of like razor blade effect. But yeah, so the food thing is a whole other thing.
True.
But so I just read this book called The Molecule of More, basically just about about dopamine. Um, Super fascinating, like as far as neurotransmitters are concerned. But as far as psychedelics go, what are the main players neurochemically? Like what are the I don't know, you know.
About dopamine or like in general in the brain?
Okay, so okay, let me ask you a better question. Does how much do we know about the mechanism of action for let's say like let's take one class. Let's take psilocybin.
Uh, we know a lot, but there are some black boxes in the middle. Basically, our lab, I mean, the lab I'm still working in Argentina, the one I'm doing my PhD. We call it COCUCO. That's consciousness, culture, and complexity. For us, it's like the three main
Nice.
columns, pillars of the cognitive neuroscience we do. We try to we're super interested in consciousness. We try to track consciousness at the lowest scale possible. So we start like from the molecular scale. We're trying to figure out what characteristics those molecular structures they have to finally bind to the different receptors in which they are, yeah, producing their effects. So we work, for example, with molecular dynamics. We work with cryo IM images of those structures. So at that level, we, like human beings, humanity, science, we understand what is happening there. Is where is the spot that it calls the pocket on the protein where the molecule has to bind, how that the structure is changing its shape, and that's how the neuron perceives what is happening in its environment.
So how do you investigate these kind of things? Like in a dish, or like in
That's a very good
vitro?
question. It has a huge percentage of that. It's, yeah, a lot of actually biology, and then there's a lot of computational methods.
Okay.
First, we need the 3D structure of the protein.
Mhm.
Until a couple of years ago, the only way to obtain that it was using electron
Yeah.
microscopy. Okay,
Yeah.
but it was super difficult because you have to the protein has to be super still during all the process. That's why they were using like super low temperatures, cryogenic technology, to keep the protein in place. And at the same time they have to, try to make additional supports, because the process is quite slow sometimes, so you really need to be sure that it's going to be still, and yeah, it takes a lot of time. They have to change little pieces of the protein for making it more stable under these conditions. And that, yeah, the precision you obtain there, it's unbelievable. And literally, the position of every atom of that protein. Protein could have one of these receptors. It has around 300, 400, maybe a little bit more amino acids. So let's say that each one of them, I don't know, has 10 atoms. It could be a little bit more, but you are around always around 4,000, 5,000 atoms. And then once you have that, all those coordinates, then you can start running simulations. You can calculate the attraction and repulsion of those atoms, not all of them at the same time, because the problem is going to be like impossible, like too big. But yeah, as you make this like stop motion animation frame by frame of the
Mhm.
molecule getting inside the protein and changing its dimensional conformation. And so this is happening, let's say, outside of the cell. Then you have the membrane, like the wall of the skin of this neuron, let's say. And then
Yeah.
part of this protein is already inside the cell, inside the neuron. So what you move and change over here, it's affecting what you, yeah, how the pieces of the protein, it's binding to other set of proteins that are inside. That's the G coupled proteins that are inside the neuron. And now it's when the black box starts. The neuron changes its firing rate. That's how we realize that the neuron is affected by that drug. The problem is that we are not so sure what kind of secondary messengers are um, coming from the protein to some epigenetic stuff that happens inside. There are some markers. There was a little bit of a study done at epigenetic level. You can analyze the change in the genes that were produced for a stimulus from outside of the neuron. And yeah, we
So
know like how those genes are changing after different kind of psychedelics were affecting that neuron. But how to correlate that exactly with the rate of change in the neuron and what happens later, that's still work in progress. My PhD, it's mainly based on that, but yeah, it's takes so long. What we do after that is we have more general activity of the brain. It could be EEG data, it could be fMRI data sometimes, depends on the experiment. We work in collaboration with Imperial College at London. They were the first in the world in analyzing the effects of LSD and psilocybin and DMT under the effects of a nuclear resonator. These were like three very important papers. And in Argentina, one of the most important research that we have done in Cocuco. It's the first experiment with a psychedelic in the story of our country, and it was about the effects of smoke DMT. DMT is the active compound in ayahuasca, for example. Yeah, in human beings in natural settings. Natural settings doesn't necessarily means that we were in the forest, but actually that the volunteers, the subjects, they decided when and how and where they wanted to have their
Right.
experience. Usually, what all other labs around the world are doing is like, okay, you have to be here on Thursday at, I don't know, 4 p.m. And yeah, you're going to smoke here in this place that you have never seen before with all these people around that are totally strangers for you. And yeah, it looks super white and it's a lab. And yeah, if we are always saying that the set and the setting is so important in the psychedelic experience, maybe that's not the best set and setting for
Right.
for
Right,
psychedelic.
for sure. Have
Um,
you? So I had so many questions I want to ask because you just said so many things. First thing is, so when you take something like a psychedelic, so the only change in the neuron is just the firing rate. Like there's no other dimension of variation.
yes, I mean, what we can perceive at macroscopic level, it's like from EEG data, it's the
Mm.
change in the firing rate.
Right. Okay.
Basically, you have to think that every electrode in the brain is like a microphone for trying to hear in these neurons firing. Actually, these electrodes, what are measuring, it's literally current over the surface of the head. So it's literally electrons that were fired in that process. But yeah, we have millions and millions and millions of neurons. So it's trying to hear what is happening there. It's like, I don't know, using a couple of hundreds microphones to hear like every human being on the planet.
Right.
It's
Right.
like they really have
That's
to
a
be singing the same song if you want to
yeah.
hear actually what is happening there.
Yeah.
um so yeah, that's what we know at microscopic level. Then yeah, I was telling you, we know like how some genes are expressed or changed inside the cell. Every experience you have in your life affects you at the genetical level. It's like there. That's how we keep some register of what was happening around our life, and it's part of the process of learning or actually making next generations a little bit better.
Right.
And yeah, there are like precise markers of different psychedelics on those neurons. There's this lab directed by Javier Gonzalez Maeso, brilliant researcher. I'm a huge fan of him, and he works in collaboration with Noelia Weinbaum. Oh my God, I don't remember, or actually I can't pronounce her surname. Noelia
Okay.
from the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. Yeah, they were working on analyzing these markers. What I'm trying to do now with other members of the lab and in collaboration with people from the chemistry department too, it's create this machine model that can predict these changes in the genes from the change in the structure of the protein.
So okay, just so that just to make sure I understand the idea of gene expression, right? So um, if you want to get a protein of any sort, we need a gene to produce that protein,
Yes,
correct? Okay. So and the gene expression is handled by the cell's nucleus.
yes. There's an entire mechanism that it's like writing stuff that are important for keeping that register.
Okay. And then the protein that's produced, that's so can all cells make proteins? Like is that a thing?
I really don't. I guess so. I mean, probably yes. Because yeah, otherwise, how you are gonna keep that mechanism working? So yes,
Right, right. Okay. Uh, so you when you introduce a psychedelic compound or any compound for that matter, there is a potential for a change in gene expression based on what the cell sees. Is that about right?
Uh, I'm not so sure like the probability of actually the cell registering that change. Uh, from what I seen in the result of these experiments, they are quite successful in doing that once and again, and probably at a very high level, because for actually having the ability of reading those expressions in precise way, probably you need very big samples, I guess.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it's that's the black box, and it's not my field, and that's when the mystery happens. Because at some point we were thinking, okay, there's a scale for consciousness. It's me, for example, when you think in temperature, you are thinking, for example, you have this vessel full of gas, and the temperature is related with the energy inside this vessel, and how much these molecules are almost like touching each other generates energy or whatever. But if you go to a lower scale, you go to the atomic scale or you go to the quantum scale, temperature doesn't exist anymore. It's a
Hmm.
macroscopic scale from the atomic point of view.
Right.
So we were thinking, okay, where this consciousness starts?
Hmm.
Because we think in my opinion, it should be at cellular level. Okay, there shouldn't be something smaller than an entire neuron taking decisions of what you should do every day.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, there's other other researchers that actually they think that this has to come from something much more smaller. So randomness, where randomness starts. So randomness, it could be tracked kind of until the quantum level.
Hmm.
So maybe our behavior, our decisions, they have a lot of this randomness. So we could say that consciousness maybe comes from even the quantum level. I still want to believe that we are going to find something at the cellular level, but yeah, what is happening below that, like the gene expressions and super precise change in the protein, yeah, there's still a lot of work that it has to be done. Super interesting because actually we are doing that, and we know other labs that are following the same pathway. But yeah, that's the most complicated part. Then
So
what's other things we do in this is like analyzing the problem from bottom up. But if we go from top down, for example, a lot of things that we do in our lab is natural language processing. There's a lot of reports of people in internet telling how it was their experience with different psychedelics. And for example, we were finding correlations between this kind of semantic expression of all these trips and chemical properties we know about those molecules, or even, for example, direct changes that we could find in the structure of the protein.
have you read The Doors of Perception?
Yes,
Oh, amazing book.
yes, I really enjoy it. Actually, it's hard for me to read things that are other things that are not papers. Usually,
Yeah.
I can't find the time, and every time that I can do a little bit. I have a little bit of freedom for reading something outside of that. I always try to stay with something with things related with psychedelics because it
Yeah.
happens very often that people telling us, "Have you ever read the last book from Michael Pollan?" Because and it's like, "Oh no!" And it's like, in chapter 3 he says, and it's like, "Oh, we have to read
Mm.
it."
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
people is
yeah.
gonna
I
start
think.
asking, and we should know. I didn't finish it.
Yeah.
I like it kind of, but I didn't finish it.
I thought like I don't know like because well, I mean I'm biased because I'm a huge fan of Huxley, and I used like I write so I love his work, but um this whole so okay let's so what makes psychedelics so different from the other things that we take? Like clearly people have put it in a box. It's like okay, this is weird. This is some weird stuff that you don't understand.
Well,
Like why is the big deal?
the
Like
answer the answer
why
is
is the big deal?
exactly the answer. It's probably exactly that. It's that the experience is so intense, so different to every kind of other thing you could feel in your daily life, and it's so hard to actually find the right expressions to transmit how you were feeling there. That yeah, we should do something with this. It's like we can't like just watch in another direction. Um, and makes like yeah no nothing here happened. No, come on, it was so important. It So yeah, we're a little obsessed as humans, as in science, to try to figure out if psychedelics could be useful in some way, because
So
we always know that they are fun,
right.
but they are
They're,
useful. Yeah,
they're not always fun. They're not always fun. Like,
that's a
you know,
problem. That's a problem because
the
actually, if that's why there, I think there's so many efforts in trying to find some kind of proper utility to psychedelics, because that will clean their name. It's like, okay, okay, okay,
Mm.
yes, they are fun, but look, they are good, for people who really need them. But yeah, I mean, that it's super hard for us to accept that something can be just fun and that's it.
The reason, like, I mean, the reason I said that is because I don't like psychedelics. They don't show you what you want to see. They show you what you need to see,
Exactly,
right?
I love that one. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, you got to be very like, there's a quote by Carl Jung, right? It's beware of unearned wisdom, right? So like it's like, okay, so you're like, oh, I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna take a heroic dose of psilocybin. First time in my life. I never thought about this before. And then you sort of see things that you don't like. In my experience, at least, right? Whenever I take the psilocybin, my experience is that it makes me see things that I've been trying to ignore, right? So things that I've been willingly trying to not address, it'll force me to look at it. It'll also show me things that I need to see, like things that I can't see even if I want to see it, right? Like recently, I had this experience where um, I was feeling quite uh, like I was always just like going right, always going, going from doing ABC, doing ABC, and I was feeling like I hadn't accomplished anything for some reason, right? And then I had this trip, and then like halfway through it, I had this sort of outer body experience, right? And I was looking at myself from a like a third out like a bird's eye view, right? And there was this, I don't know what it was, this voice telling me like, look at yourself, like look at all you've done, like look at who you were like 5, 10 years ago. Think about the people who were around you in your environment, and look at the things you can do, like. And then like I heard myself talk, and then I heard a voice saying, like, look at how eloquent you are for some kid from an island in the middle of nowhere that no one's ever heard of. Like, you should be proud of yourself. And I was like, man, I really needed that. Like I was
Thank you, brain. It's like,
yeah.
thank you, nice part of you. It's like,
Yeah, like I was, because I'm always so critical of myself, right? I'm
oh yeah,
hypercritical,
the story of my life. Yeah.
right? So like in the moment I was like so relieved, and I was about to, like, I was on the verge of tears. I was like, man, that I'm so glad I can see that. But like again, but you see things you don't want to see. I mean, like especially if you want, if you've been avoiding thinking about something, that's the worst. That's the best time to
Ah,
take some.
then it's like, maybe you really need to pay attention to this right here, right now. Fatboy
Absolutely.
Slim style, right here, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So like people are like, hey man, you wanna go to this party and take one of the mushrooms? I'm like, no, I don't want to do that at
No, I
all.
don't. I don't want to do all that work today.
Yeah.
I'm already tired. No, no, yeah.
No, it's like if I take a good enough dose, it's like I'm afraid to even think about it for the next 6 months. I'm like, I don't want to even like, because I noticed like it takes a long time to really for me to like integrate the experience. And so after an experience, like at least a month or two down the road, I'm still pulling things together from the things that I've experienced, right? So like it's it's quite useful for me at least.
Yes, it
Um,
is for sure.
and I also find I also find I'm much more open to experiences after like the month or two following uh, uh, this thing. So like I'm more willing to try new things. Like, and that's been really helpful, especially now that I'm back in academia and I'm trying to learn stuff, right? So it's like like a
Yeah, very
random
good
restart.
point. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that's one of the best advices for anyone in academia. You should be open to try everything that it's new and around in your field all the time. That's and open to any kind of collaborations and any kind of possibility of mixing stuff that usually they are not together. That's
Hmm.
how the best science starts for sure.
So what has your experience been doing this research? Like, have people been pretty open to it? Like, has a lot of pushback from like universities and
That's a
funding
very good
agencies?
question. Argentina, it's probably one of the best countries for doing this kind of research, in the sense that society, it's not super open, but they are not so close. I mean, if you explain everything with enough detail, you have like the right reasons, and you do everything properly, it probably, like, society will accept it. We talk about our job openly with anyone. Even sometimes we're invited to different schools in Argentina for talking uh, with the students that are in high school, with teenagers, about, yeah, prevention of addictions and actually what the drugs do in our body. So yeah, we are super open about that. Trying to find funding for that, that was a different story. um, Everything started with our director Enzo Tagliasucchi. He was the one that started to study consciousness and altered states of consciousness, mainly dreaming and people in vegetative state and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
He started his lab in 2016 or 17. That's when I joined his team. And yeah, he just came back from Europe, so he was still using part of his scholarships for starting this new lab in Argentina. And after that, yeah, we were trying to find our own fundings. Doing research with psychedelics was not so expensive as some people could think, because how we were choosing our volunteers helped a lot with that. For example, at Imperial College, what they are doing is that they are giving the substance themselves, and these compounds are so pure. And actually, because the experiment, it's different in this way, they are giving IV doses of these compounds to the volunteers. They are spending, I hear, around a couple of millions of British pounds just in obtaining the chemical compound from the, yeah, let's say, chemical companies that are authorized for producing compounds that could be used in humans and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because you are 100% sure of that everything that you are measuring there is because you have this compound that is 100% pure and it's IV, so you are totally sure that the metabolization of the dose is going to be that one. But it's not very representative of the average experience of people consuming drugs in society. We don't have access to super pure compounds, and we are not giving us, I don't know, IV doses of LSD or psilocybin. We are just taking our paper blotters, eating mushrooms, whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
what we are doing in Argentina is we talk with the ethics committee and we told them, okay, let's say that, for example, you want to study cocaine, right? What you are gonna do is you are not gonna give cocaine to healthy volunteers just to see what happens. That's a terrible idea. You try to find people who is already consuming cocaine, and you just acquire data from them. So that's what we did with psychedelics. We explained to them that, yeah, they are illegal, like in many parts of the world, but that doesn't mean that there's people doing it, and we should know as society what is doing in the human brain. So yeah, the volunteers were people that they already gonna consume DMT by their own means because it was their decision and it's part of what they do with their lives. But yeah, they were telling us in advance when they are gonna be doing that. So they were a huge selection process. They have interviews with psychologists and psychiatrists. They have to
Mm-hmm.
fill a lot of different questionnaires. And once we were sure that they were fulfilling all the requirements for being part of the experiment, we arranged finally this interview, and they smoke in their houses usually, maybe with the assistance of any friend. Yep, we were there with our EEG caps acquiring the data.
Okay. I mean, isn't that really noisy? Like the data, like if they're just sitting around in the house and they're moving and smiling and
No,
talking.
the thing is, one of the best aspects of smoke DMT is that it's super short and super intense. So the experience is around 7 minutes,
Mm.
but yeah, it produces huge visual distortion. You are gonna see like geometrical patterns, super colorful ones in front of your eyes, and it's totally immersive. Like you're totally inside that reality, and it produces a lot of yes, this well-being and happiness feelings. So yeah, it's perfect for experiments because people actually they just stay still in their chairs during, yeah, 5, 6, 7 minutes. Um, And yeah, and you see huge changes in their brain. It's like super notorious, even without doing any kind of Fourier spectrum analysis. It's pretty obvious just from our naked eye that yeah, something strange is happening with those signals.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah, I remember I tried salvia for the first time. That was
oh,
that was pretty ridiculous. Like so, as far as psychedelics go, what's the deal with salvia? Like,
Salvia, the final frontier. You have to hear this. I was already talking with people from our department about the possibility of presenting this project to the ethics committee at Tilburg for acquiring data from volunteers smoking salvia, because salvia is legal here in the
right?
Netherlands. So actually, from a legal point of view, there's no way that they could say no. But yeah, obviously, it's anything related with human beings and acquiring data, and it's a huge problem from the ethical perspective. So let's say what they say. I'm still preparing the documents. Unfortunately, it's super long, everything they are asking. I already have other models of ethics approvals that we presented in Argentina for example, the DNT experiment, or the same that they were using at the Imperial in England. So it's a protocol that we already trust in this procedure, this pipeline, because we were working with it for so long, and in different countries, it's working pretty well. So, and yes, we work with this wireless EEG cap that it can fit inside your backpack, so it's super convenient
Mm.
for going to the the different people houses. um once we had that, the next things we do, it's usually trying to correlate that activity with markers we have from that subjective experience. It could be results from those questionnaires, or it could be, for example, the semantic content of the interview that they have with us after the experience, in which they are trying to put in words what we were living there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm for like thinking back to my salvia experience. There's
Oh,
like
salvia! You asked about salvia. Sorry. Yeah,
salvia.
salvia. The thing is,
Wait, what were you talking about? DMT?
yeah, but okay, but the experiment we want to do with salvia is exactly like that one. It's going to be
No,
the
so
same
wait, hold
procedure,
on.
and salvia is around 10 minutes experience, so that's super useful from acquiring data. You have a lot of information in a very short time. Salvia has a very strange properties. One of them is that there are not so many psychoactive compounds without a nitrogen atom. Actually, there are like just three examples: THC from
Mm.
weed, salvinorin A from Salvia divinorum, and actually that's it. Then you have myristicin from nutmeg, but it's not psychoactive for anyone, for like any human beings. Just a few of us can produce like psychoactive reactions to this compound in nutmeg. Uh,
That's hilarious.
yeah, because it
That's
depends
so
of
funny.
the metabolic route that you have there. There's people. There's This is something super interesting. You should Google oil ayahuasca instead of ayahuasca. It's oil ayahuasca. It's people
Okay.
getting high with essential oils, because if you have the right diet, you can change like the concentrations of different enzymes, and as a result you are producing new compounds that are psychoactive. So you're biosensitizing psychedelics inside you, keeping the right diet. And it's
That's
real
funny.
and it works. It doesn't work for anyone, but it has a very like high success rate. I didn't try it, but all the
That's
chemistry they have behind it sounds reasonable.
That's crazy. So okay, so let's. So my salvia experience was
Hmm.
terrifying. Like I mean, I couldn't even talk to someone about like I couldn't talk. I couldn't do
Terrifying.
anything. I think it was bad because my friends didn't tell me what it was. They were like, "Bro, we got some stuff. You want to smoke it?" I mean, I was young. I was like, I don't know, 16, 17 years old, and I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then I thought it was weed, and then I smoked it. I knew immediately that this is not weed because like the smoke was like super thick, and it was like a smog, right? And I was like, this is not weed. And then my friend was like, count backwards from 10. I was like, what? And I started counting, dude. And then I was gone, man. And I woke up like my shirt was off. I was sweating. I was like, what the hell happened?
Yes, yes, it's super intense. It's super intense. It's one of the more selective compounds ever discovered. It's almost only binds to the kappa, kappa or mu opioid receptor, the kappa opioid receptor. Yes, and it's interesting because it has a lot of pharmacological potential. Because if you are working on opioid receptor, probably you will have analgesic properties, or and if it's produced this connection from your environment, it could be used for anesthetics.
Mm.
So yep, and it
I mean,
seems
it's
like
a naturally it's a naturally occurring plant thing, right?
yes. There's only one place in Earth where you can find salvia growing in the wild. That's Oaxaca in the south of Mexico. I was there. And the plant, it doesn't reproduce itself by seeds, but actually it needs to, how do you say, take a little
A
piece of,
shoot
yeah, exactly, a little bit of that.
like oh, yeah.
There are salvia already in other countries, and from what I hear about that, these people that have salvia in other countries, you have to go to Mexico, put it like inside your luggage in so way that you know that that plant is going to survive all the flight
Mm.
in the airplane to your country. It has to
Yeah,
cross customs without anyone discovering that actually you have a living plant there, and you
yeah.
have to like put it as soon as possible in ground and just pray and just like pray that yeah, it will survive. And in Argentina there was this community that actually they did that. I hear that it took them at least 5 attempts until the plant finally survived to the trip. But yeah, that's how in Argentina was one of the few countries in which you could have a lot of salvia. But again, the experience is so strong, it's so intense, it's so, I don't know if scary is the right word, because maybe people think that has to be something negative. There's no possibility of something scary that it's still
Yeah, I
good.
don't.
Yeah,
The thing is, I don't like when I say scary. I don't mean it in the bad sense.
but
Like new things that are
yeah,
new are things that are new can be scary, right? Doesn't mean they're good or bad.
it's intense. It's
They can
intense,
scare. They can
and you
scare you.
have to be respectful with what you see there. That's for sure. I only did it once, and I think that that was enough. It was a 25x concentration. That's super intense, but yeah, I actually was looking for that in the sense that I really wanted to have the entire experience to be totally sure of what it potential is. Let's say.
So, what were you talking about when you say you approach Tilburg? Is for DMT or is it for salvia?
Sorry, you were saying?
You're saying you're trying to collect some data from
Yeah, from
Tilburg.
TNT. That's what we did in
Okay.
Argentina, and what I want to do
Okay.
here in the Netherlands. It's to replicate the same experiment that we did with GMT, but with salvia.
Okay.
Because I mean, the pipeline or like the protocol, it's how the experiment is designed. It works perfectly for salvia too. It's something that you have to smoke, and the experience is just a couple of minutes. So yeah, and here it's
Okay.
legal.
Cool.
So basically, it will
I
be.
mean, yeah, I'll be
Mm,
here for another year, so I'll sign up for sure if it gets off the ground.
for sure. No, I'm waiting. Probably, I'm gonna finish all the proposals on June during the end of the semester. But yeah, now I'm like totally.
Right.
How do you say? Yeah, under a lot of piles of work.
So, like, okay, I also want to ask you about MDMA, right?
FDMA.
So, what's the story with MDMA?
Well, MDMA, like all the phenethylamines that we have, now it's we can compare it with mescaline. How humans obtain DMA in the first time, it was not as part of experiment or like a research trying to obtain psychoactive compounds. The first like breeding register that we have from NDMA, it's in a patent at the
A patent?
beginning, yeah, in a chemistry patent at the beginning of the 1900s, where they were trying to obtain, it was part of the synthetic route from obtaining a compound that was a how do you say, vasoconstrictor, blood
Mm,
strain
right.
constrictor.
Yeah.
Um, but we started to use MDMA for like psychiatric purposes in the 60s and 70s, and
For
probably
what purposes? Like what kind of
where
purposes?
there was this chemist, one of my favorite people in the world. Unfortunately, he has passed away a couple of years ago. His name is Alexander Sasha Shulgin. He dedicated almost his entire life, or at least like this important part of his career, to study what different psychedelic compounds could do in our bodies. He invented and synthesized all these new compounds. He has two amazing books called Pilcal and Tilcal. That means
Oh yeah, I've heard of this. I've heard
yeah,
of this.
exactly. In one, he produced around 200 different phenethylamines, and the second one, yeah, like another 100 different tryptamines. So yeah, it's like all probably any drug that people could be consuming today, it could be something that he invented in the 60s, 70s, 80s, or it could be the case that it's a molecule, uh, an analog of one of those, and it's directly related with one of those father compounds.
Hmm.
And yeah, he was the first one in discovering the therapeutical potential of MDMA. He started his research analyzing analogs of mescaline. He was trying to move every functional group around the structure of the molecule to different positions and changing atoms by other kind of elements and different kind of iterations, trying to figure out a pattern or trying to figure out the mechanism of making of how a molecule could be psychoactive, could be a psychedelic. And
Hmm.
that's how he started for mescaline, arrived at TM2. Then he arrived at things like 2CV, for example, and he was one of the first that he thought, or he realized that actually compounds that you could find in essential oils like myristicin in nutmeg, they could be psychoactive in our bodies. There was this experiment in which they were giving nutmeg to rabbits or mice, a very small mammal, I don't remember exactly, and they discovered that the it was producing some kind of stimulant effect, like the temperature of these animals was getting higher. They started to be more, how do you say, with more energy, and analyzed the urine of these, yeah, animals. They discovered that there was this compound, which it's the structure was not clear enough, but it has nitrogen. So he thought, okay, maybe these animals they are producing its own psychoactive compound inside of them, adding this nitrogen atom to these inert compounds from the nutmeg. That's why they are showing this activity. So he decided to try to figure out how that molecule should look like, and he created a molecule called MMDA. It's the equivalent of at MDA, but instead of using saffrol as your starting molecule, you start with myristicin. It's this analog compound that you found in
Right.
nutmeg. So you can create a very similar analog of MDMA from the essential oil of nutmeg. And actually, there are some people doing it. It's not very common, but yeah, it exists. And yeah, there are a lot of papers written about that.
So what does MDMA do in your brain?
There's still a couple of doubts. Basically, we know that it releases a lot of neurotransmitters. That's why you still feel pretty much like yourself in the sense that there's no visual distortion. It's a
Hmm.
stimulant, so maybe you're gonna feel a little bit of anxiety, but at the same time, a lot of energy, and that's that needing that you should be moving all the time. And but at the same time it produces so much happiness and empathy. There's a lot of dopamine, serotonin, and noradrenaline floating around because again it releases all these compounds, and yeah, and it's active by itself in the sense that one, it binds to the neuron, produce the release of all those compounds, and at the same time it changes the behavior of the neuron. It has a lot of potential, and actually it was approved quite recently in the United States by the FDA for treating post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, PTSD.
Yeah, mainly.
So
Yeah.
what about the toxicity of MDMA? Is
Some
there
of
any?
its metabolites, yeah, are neurotoxic. Actually, there's a lot of work that it has been done by David Nichols and trying to obtain analogs of MDMA that are no neurotoxic. And actually, he found them. There's now I don't want to make a mistake about the names, but I think that one of them is MDAT, and the other one it
Okay.
could be MDAI or something like that. We have to check. It's yeah, methylene tetramine. It was one of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it has almost the same effect as MDMA, but the molecule, the metabolites, the resultant molecule of this digestion, let's say, they are not neurotoxic. But yeah, it's a
I
little.
mean, is it a big concern? Like if you take pure MDMA, like how
Um,
much of that, how much of the metabolite is going to be present?
I don't want to commit a mistake and talking about doses or frequency
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
consumes,
No, so no, like I'm
but
just
people
curious.
should know that yeah, there are consequences, at least at chemical level. We There are ways to measure that, and it exists, and we are aware of that. If you consume it in the right small doses with the right not so high frequency, I think that it should be safe enough. But again, depends of so many factors that
I know,
yeah, I don't
true,
want to
true.
risk.
No, no, I know. I was just wondering because I had quite a few. Not quite a few, like not as many as the other psychedelics, but I've had a couple of experiences with MDMA, like pure, just like the powder form,
Hmm.
and I've like it's really interesting, right? Because like there feels like there's a psychedelic for just the right kind of personality and and just the right time,
For
right?
sure.
Like my one of my best experiences on MDMA was just like me and like three other friends. We were in our living room, and like these are people that I've known my whole life, and we were just the sheer feeling of love and just the connectedness that we felt was that I was that was scary to me because like I don't like because that was such a new feeling to me because I'm such a like a type A get shit done kind of person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like feeling at that level was terrifying.
Okay, okay, too much.
too many, too many feelings.
Yeah.
But okay, so there is some toxicity. I was just curious because there are different accounts and like there are like random people saying you can take different things to counteract the toxicity, blah blah blah.
It's not at the level that we should be super worried, but yeah, it exists. And if there are ways to avoid it, I'm really surprised that we are not
I mean,
consuming those alternatives.
I'm sure they factored that in before the FDA approved it for PTSD, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was, let's say, let's use the word convenient in the United States because they have so many war veterans that are suffering from this,
I
yeah,
know
mental
it's tragic.
disorders.
It's
Exactly.
crazy.
So yeah, at that point they really need that. And again, if you are going to use it for therapeutical purposes, so it's not that the people is going to consume it quite often, but actually just for a couple of sessions and with like a very precise objective, any neurotoxicity probably is not our biggest concern when you have so many other beneficial aspects to take into account. um but yeah, NDMA, what experience? Yeah.
So what about okay? So let's talk about what about ketamine?
Ooh, ketamine. That works on glutamate. Ketamine. We have a very interesting story with ketamine. A very nice research paper. One of Enzo's biggest works, I think. Um, I'm one of the co-authors of on that paper, but yeah, it's just being in the team with Enzo makes gives you sometimes this kind of awesome satisfactions. We were analyzing the semantic content of different reports of near-death experiences, people who were almost dead. Maybe
Mm.
it was in a surgery, or maybe it was like in a car accident or something like that. And everyone they are reporting this commonalities, like there's a light at the end of a tunnel and I feel no fear at all. Actually, it was super peaceful and I was like almost happy, and I was floating. Sometimes I could even like see myself from outside of my body. And sometimes they report that there was this presence that it could be defined as God, but it didn't have a shape. So they are always described the same thing.
Mm.
And so it was weird because they have like different religious backgrounds or cultural origins, and but they were always reporting the same. It was not the case that, I don't know, Europeans were seeing Jesus, and I don't know, Buddhists were seeing Buddha. No, it was all the same from all of them. So there was this
Mm.
theory that actually maybe this near these experiences, it could be a psychedelic, a hallucinogen experience from a psychoactive compound that it was endogenous, that it was inside our body, and it was released in that moment. And people like Rick Strassman, they were talking about DMT as one of those molecules. But actually, in this research, we were comparing this again near this report experiences with what people was reporting of different drugs in Arrowit, this website in which users since like the
Yeah, I know.
90s.
I'm familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, the molecule, and this is something that in the lab we already knew even before starting with analysis. The molecule that it was the most similar one to being almost dead, it's ketamine. And actually, there is a biological explanation behind that. When your brain perceives that something wrong is happening, that probably you are gonna die, your brain starts to release a lot of glutamate. Glutamate is this excitatory neurotransmitter, and it's way to telling you, okay, I don't know what we have to do for getting out of this situation, but dude, just do it. This is like our last chance. Here you have all the glutamate you need. The problem is that glutamate is neurotoxic too. There is this phenomenon called neuro neuroexcitotoxicity, in which this excess of glutamate destroys the neuron. So a lot of people who are having these, how do you say, brain strokes, and at
Mhm.
some point they have like consequences after the incident, like maybe they have problems with movement or, well, okay, things like that. Usually what people says is like, yeah, maybe the oxygen was not reaching the brain, so that's why he's showing these uh, problems. And yeah, obviously the lack of oxygen, it's important and it's related with those problems. But the main factor, the main problem is actually the excess of glutamate and the neurons dying from this excitotoxicity. Um, so there's this theory that says that maybe there is another compound that is released at the same time, that it's a glutamate antagonist, that it's there for protecting the neurons at some point when the levels of glutamate are too high. And for example, one of the evidence that we have that this could be possible is that if one of these patients having a stroke and next to him or her there is a nurse, a doctor, with the syringe already prepared with ketamine, and they like inject it in the right moment at the right time, yeah, there's a huge probability of reduction in the consequences of that episode, because
What, like
ketamine
strokes? Any
ketamine
like
is competing against glutamate from the same receptors, and in the process is protecting the neuron from taking too much glutamate that is going to
so
be
so
dangerous
so
for the neuron.
that's for strokes, right? For
Yes,
strokes and see.
actually, a lot of different problems in which the brain starts to release a lot of glutamate because it's totally desperate. But yes, strokes is probably the best example.
So are seizures like that as well?
Uh,
What's the
I
difference between a stroke and a seizure?
Oof. Okay. No, that's a huge difference. The seizure, there are different like explanations or origins. Let's say causes the way it has, but usually it's related with an excess of synchronicity in the firing rate of the neurons. When at
Mm.
some point there is this resonance in the firing rate, in the synchronization of all the neurons, yeah, there's this desynchronization, this like breaking in the connection happening,
Yeah,
and a lot of neurons that start to fire all together at the same time. And that, for example, that's why people is shaking, because you are telling the muscles you have to move to the left, and you are telling to the muscles you have to move to the right, all at the same time together. So that's why they are shaking. It's an
I
excess
can't,
of synchronicity and firing rate altogether of the neurons.
I can't remember who it was, but there's an author. I think it might have been Dostoevsky, who had seizures. Um, those like and he described it as like he was on the verge of seeing, like, what it felt like was he was on the verge of seeing the truth of the world, and as he just is about to see it, he he goes into a seizure, like, and that's how he describes it. But like,
Nice.
so so you can use ketamine
Yeah,
to
for
counteract this.
yeah, saving the life of one of these patients. So, what there's the theory that says that maybe we have our endogenous ketamine that is released at the same time with that super excess of glutamate for protecting the neurons, and near this experience, it's an hallucination produced by this protective compound. It's super hard to find in humans because you should be like taking blood samples probably from the spine at the same time that the person is dying, so that's not going to happen. But they already did it with pigs, and yeah, in that process they found this peptide. Peptides are like short proteins. It's a short change of amino acids, usually around, I don't know, 30, 50, something like that.
Mhm.
That yeah, it showed that it has affinity for the glutamate receptors. So it could be the case that it could be an hallucination of that molecule.
So I mean, so they've been using ketamine for addiction treatment, I think.
They're using ketamine for a lot of different problems. They are using ketamine from depression. Now
Oh yeah, well, that's true.
there's the
Yeah.
ketamine spray. The problem with antidepressants and people with depression is that there are some cases in which this person is super, super, super sad. Maybe he's not committing suicide just because he doesn't have enough energy for doing it. He's so sad that he's not able of committing suicide. But after, if they start to feel a little bit
Oh
better,
right,
there is
right,
this
right.
window in which
Oh Jesus.
actually, yeah, they have enough energy for committing one of these madness.
Damn,
So
that's
yeah, that's a huge
that's
problem.
rough.
What you have to put a lot of attention on the patient in that. Meanwhile, they are like passing through this window. Um, but that doesn't happen with ketamine. It's You can totally change the state of mind of that person with a couple of doses of ketamine, and yeah, they don't their life is not at risk, like it happens with other people with depression and suicide thoughts.
So I mean, I can attest. So I mean, I've had several, maybe, I don't know, almost now, I think about 10 years of just like dealing with being depressed, and so right now I'm on like a mild antidepressant, uh, and a. I mean, I'm cool with talking about this. I don't know. Some people think I shouldn't talk about it, but I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't
I
give a
think
shit.
that in this modern world, not talking about mental health, it doesn't have sense. I mean, a huge percentage of population. I really saying that 100% of every human being is going to have a mental problem at some point in their life, it's like maybe too much. But yeah, a huge percentage of us at some point we will have something that could be described as some kind of situation in which we will need help for dealing with that.
Right.
So yeah.
Exactly. So like, when I was first prescribed, like, so I was prescribed for anxiety, right? And then and the reason I saw a psychiatrist was because I wasn't sleeping,
Mm.
right? But what I didn't realize was that I had been sleep deprived for years, right? I had no idea. So like, basically when he gave me this super low dose, the next day I called him. I said, I said, when I took it at like 6 in the evening, I couldn't even walk at like 7. And he's like, and I said, and he said, and I was worried. I was like, did you give me like a too high of a dose? Or he's like, no, I put you on probably the lowest dose. You just haven't slept in weeks, so you're just feeling that effect. And I after like it took like a week for me to feel normal again, because I was like, I didn't realize how much. So I slept for the first time in maybe years through
Oh,
like through the night, right? And I woke up and I was like, Jesus, man,
I
this is
really
crazy.
needed that. Yeah.
I didn't know I needed that badly. But like, it's really helpful. Like, if you so I always tell people, like, I think, like, talk to a psychologist first, and then see if behavioral changes can, like, before I went to a psychiatrist, I tried everything, like stimulus control, CBT. Like everything was routine. I had no computers past 6 p.m. My diet, like exercise. I was working out, like I was doing everything. I was working out 7 days a week. I was doing yoga. I was meditating. For like 6, 8 months, I tried this, and I was like, this is not. And now I was like, fuck it. I need some help.
Okay,
This is
but
like
that's great. That's great.
nothing
That
else.
is how it should be done. It's like, okay, first we have to be totally sure that we are healthier as we can, you know?
Exactly, exactly. So it's like people. So I know people who tell me like, oh man, I have ADHD. I'm like, do you actually? Because like, look at yourself right now. You check your phone every 2 seconds. You're always on Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, right? And like you, like, first of all, try to discipline yourself a little bit. See if that helps, right? Like, or they'll say like, oh man, I have insomnia. I can't sleep. And I'm like, and they're like, they're staring at the screen till like 12 at night, and they're trying to go to sleep. I'm like, it's not gonna work, bro. Like, you
Yeah,
gotta
for sure. Yeah,
you gotta figure that out.
it happens to me that not so much time ago, I started to discover the tire supplements. And yeah, my life changed it completely.
Hmm.
Just like, okay, when you arrive here to the Netherlands, the first thing you hear is like you should take vitamin D because here we don't have so much sun. I arrived like in winter, so yeah,
Yeah, I've been taking 7,000 milligrams, 7,000 IU a day since I landed.
exactly. That's how it should be done. And then it was like, okay, but if I'm gonna take vitamin D, why I'm not taking B12? And then it's like, okay, but if there's B12, why not omega 3, 6, and 9? And then it was
Mhm.
like, okay, maybe a little bit of 5-HTP. And yeah, every new that I was adding at the end, now I'm just on K, D, B12, omega, and
So
5-HTP.
should I? Okay, so I've been taking a lot of vitamin D. Should I supplement with K and B as well?
Well, there's this synergy between them that everyone is telling on internet, and yeah, I mean, I tried B12 without the other ones, and I really feel much better with. But it's subjective. I mean,
Subjective,
it's
right? Yeah.
my everything that I'm telling you is with n equals one, so it's the
Mhm.
p value is pretty crappy.
So for me, right now, my stable is, I'll take, if I'm feeling really stressed out, I'll take like a like a big dose of magnesium glycinate.
Oh yeah, a friend of mine told me about magnesium. That it's like, why
Yeah.
you are not doing that? Do this.
So like, I mean, it's kind of expensive. So like I take it, so the, like, cause I mean, not the shit that they sell at like Jumbo is useless, because that's mostly magnesium oxide, and that's not gonna be absorbed. It's not gonna go into your brain. So glycinate, I take it if I feel like if I'm feeling kind of tired, like stressed out.
Mm.
I can tell, because when I start g- when my when I kn- I know I'm taxing my CNS when my eyes start twitching,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Like, so after a while, like, my eyebrows like will start to twitch, and then if that continues the next 2 days, my sleep will start getting worse and worse. Then I will be like, okay, chill, take a
You
super
are
high dose
too
of
much.
magnesium.
You are too much.
Like, and so right now it's magnesium. I take creatine every day.
I should have
Like,
magnesium. You just convinced me. Yeah, I should.
yeah, magnesium, like if you can get magnesium threonate or magnesium biglycinate, it's perfect. I mean, like, and depending on the type of magnesium, where it gets absorbed changes. So like, magnesium citrate is more, I think, absorbed by your muscles, and so glycinate, if you want to get into your brain, glycinate or threonate, the other ones won't really do anything. But yeah, magnesium, vitamin D, creatine. And I did take some fish oil for about like
Oh,
for a month or two, for like 4 or 5 months. And then I started like making like salmon soup. So I was like, I don't know, maybe like, it's not as efficient as taking just capsules, but because I started going to the market,
mm-hmm.
and they have like the entire spine of the salmon and the head
Uh-huh,
for
yeah.
like €2, right?
Give me all of that, yeah.
No, because like they fillet the salmon, they take the meat out,
Yeah.
and they have this big spine which has meat in it and like the head, right? And no one wants it, so I'm like, fucking, I'll take that. And then I just came home and my mom told me a recipe to make a broth out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I would just
You're
drink
making
a
like
big
a chemical extraction of the compounds in
right.
that
So like
remaining meat. Yeah.
probably not like super concentrated as like a capsule, but I also didn't. But I just wanted to see if it works. But I might go back to the capsule because that's a pain in the ass. Like making that is a huge pain in the ass. Um, but like so, like just like supplementing is a huge so it's a huge industry itself, right? Like nootropics. So okay, let's talk about nootropics,
Oh no,
dude.
tropics.
Let's talk about nootropics. What are some shit that actually works? Because I've heard some stuff like so there's a creatine has a strong nootropic effect. I don't know if you know this.
No, that's here.
Yeah, it's like so creatine is like it's been so it's traditional users have been guys like me who just want to go to the gym and get huge, right? So like so the power output and the strength gain aspect has been it's been well studied. It's like creatine is one of the most studied supplements in the world,
Wow.
and its efficacy has been shown over and over again. But the nootropic stuff is just coming out, and they're showing cognitive benefits in taking creatine every day. I was taking it anyway, so I was like, that's great. So like that's fine. But I do
Nice.
notice it. Like if I don't take creatine in the morning, I definitely notice like a it's weird. It's not like worse or bad. It's a different state of my mind.
Uh-huh.
You know what I
Interesting.
mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like I guess it really depends on what you want to get done. But it's okay. Nootropics. Let's talk about some
Well,
nootropics.
I think that we should start talking about modafinil. That's
Dude, but daffodil is amazing.
it's like the best invention in pharmacology ever. I mean,
You can buy it in Sri Lanka like over the counter. It's
yeah,
fantastic.
in Argentina, usually pharmacies they don't ask for any kind of prescription. They should, but yeah,
So actually, that's why. Yeah,
at
same
least
in
for
Sri Lanka.
modafinil. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
want to say that in Argentina you could get any drug over the counter
yeah,
without prescription, but modafinil, yeah, they are not worried about that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty safe. It's quite a new drug. It's from the 90s, so with the information we have about long-term effects, it's like from this period of time. But yeah, we could be sure enough that used with responsibility in the right doses and trying to keep the tolerance quite low. Yeah, it's safe enough.
So what's the
Um,
what's the tolerance build up like for modafinil?
all experience I have is more based on. I mean, all information I could give is more based on my experience that actually in research that it could be published about that. But yeah, I have a very low narcolepsy, but yeah, I can sleep at any place if I want. I mean, I have to.
That's the opposite. You gotta have the opposite problem.
It's like the thing is, I really have to. Sometimes I have to invest energy and attention to not falling asleep. I can
Right.
stay asleep, but it requires a constant, conscious aware that I shouldn't fall asleep.
Right.
And yeah, and I can sleep standing up. That's one of my superpowers. In Argentina, when you are in the subway in Buenos Aires in super rush hour, you're gonna be standing up in the train. There's no way you are gonna find a seat on rush hour in Buenos
That's
Aires.
crazy. Dude, I can't remember the last time I took a nap. Like I can't like it's not possible for me. Like my brain like it's just not possible.
It goes much better during the last years, but yeah, I'm still.
Like you know how like normal people, like average people, like normal people have the experience of like they go to the beach or like they're at their mom's house or like they're on a hammock and they're like they just fall asleep. They can't help it, right?
Yeah.
Never happens to me. Like
No, for me, it's like one of my challenges, and I knew that I was gonna be able of doing that. Is that getting into an airplane and falling asleep before the airplane takes off and waking up once we are in the air. I knew that I could do it. Yeah, I already tried a couple of times and I able to reach that. Uh,
so I've kept so man I don't know why I should have bought like a bunch of modafinil with me when I came over here.
oh yeah,
Like
here it's not
I
so easy to obtain.
I completely riffed on that one. So I might ask my mom to send me some with my prescription.
There you
for
go.
my medication. So like, uh, I used it. So like, I kept I had a pack of it in my fridge for like emergencies, like during the last year. So because the first year was completely online, right? So the first last year
Yeah,
because of
I
COVID, right?
remember.
And I was still not fully taking the medication for my sleep. I was still struggling, right? And I kept modafinil as like a, if I just some nights no sleep, right?
Mm.
Can't sleep at all. I'll be up all night, dude. I'll be like fuck it. I'll get up at 2 in the morning, take one modafinil, and just like crush,
Just go all straight. Yeah.
and just crush everything I have to do, and I'm like done with the work by like 8 in the morning. And I'm like
Yeah.
fucking. But like, it's weird. Like modafinil it's a weird thing. Like compared to like caffeine.
Well,
Or,
I'm
or,
totally sure that it has a different mechanism of action because actually the effects that it produces are super different. There's already research done showing that actually it makes you more intelligent and it increases the
what?
performance. Yeah, it increases the performance of, for example, chess players. So that's for
Really?
me a very good test to finally like to figure out if it's this magic pill that
Do you
everyone
think?
is saying. Yeah.
I mean, do you think that might be like just like a working memory advantage?
The official answer from that you can read in every box of modafinil is that they don't know the mechanism of action, which I think it's not true. Obviously, it's, oh, how do you find this super perfect compound if you nowhere actively looking for? So yeah, they don't know. It feels totally dopaminergic. We can be totally sure about that. It
Oh, for
feels
sure. Like, I mean, because I can tell you, I've tried cocaine and like it's not that different.
uh,
the,
I
the
have never
feeling.
tried cocaine, but yeah, the people who did it, they told me kind of the same. Is that they prefer actually modafinil for working, but yeah, it's dopaminergic. There's, I tried. I have HD, ADHD. At least I have one psychiatrist that says that I have it. I really think that diagnosing ADHD, it shouldn't be thought as something that is part of yourself and it's a disorder and it's gonna be there with you forever, but actually it's more something related with your behavior that it could be changed in many cases, not all of them, with the right attitude and training and
So you
being
know something.
aware of why you are doing what you do. But yeah, I really struggled with ADHD all my life, and I tried everything. I tried amphetamines and tried methylphenidate. I tried modafinil. Yeah, modafinil it's something totally different.
Do you take it regularly now or no?
No, now I'm not taking it anymore because there is always work to do, and if there is always modafinil around, I will be always working. So at some
Mm.
point, I have to stop because again, it's like then you don't go to sleep. Since I arrived here to the Netherlands, I lost 10 kilos because I was so obsessed with the first semester at Tilburg, a lot of research that I should finish from Argentina and things like that. Yeah, I was not eating, I was not sleeping, I was just working, and there's always something that it could be done, always. So
Mm.
yeah, that's the main
That's the
reason
problem.
why I'm not taking modafinil anymore. Not because it's not
That's
effective, because actually it was so effective that yeah, I already have the around amount of energy and attention to keep everything in a healthy way. But yeah, when I need it, it's there, and depends on a lot of the different tasks you have to be doing. Teaching, it has a lot of physical aspects. I mean, you have to be there in front of the blackboard. Uh, okay, I live in Rotterdam, so arriving to Tilburg it takes me more than 1 hour in two ways. So depends of what you have to do. Sometimes modafinil is not necessary. If I have to really put a lot of my body there, sometimes I have, I don't know, 3 different lectures in the same day. Yeah, modafinil is maybe it's not a good idea because actually
so. Yeah, actually, what I found in my experience, modafinil is like if I have to switch tasks or contexts in a short period of time, it's not good to have. It's not good to be modafinil. But if I have something that I have to do, and I want to do it continuously for like the next 6 hours,
exactly.
that's precisely what I need.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why it's so useful for people with ADHD. If I don't take modafinil, I'm doing seven different things at the same time, and I'm switching from one to another when I get bored. At some point, all of them are finished, kind of. It's not a very effective way to do it. But with modafinil, I just choose one and I go straight until I finish it. For coding, it's the most incredible I think ever.
Yeah, so for me, for like I was using it just to counteract my sleep problems, right? Because I was
Exactly,
not
you're
sleeping.
forcing yourself to be awake in the right moment, and actually, when the effect
Exactly.
run off, it's like, yeah, I'm super tired. Let's go to bed.
Yeah, exactly. So like, yeah, modafinil was like when I first figured out, when I first found out about it, I was like, this is crazy.
I
How is this
couldn't
thing
believe
not?
it. I couldn't believe it. It's yeah, it's out of this world. Like, so I again, for from my point of view, it's one of the biggest, uh, most important success of the
So I
pharmacological
mean,
history.
I think it's probably the most abused drug in Silicon Valley. I think
Probably, yeah, for
pretty much
sure.
everyone takes it. Everyone takes
I
modafinil
had
in the
very
morning.
good experiences for like treating my ADHD with this super low, slow release methylphenidate for kids.
Mm.
I discovered that that was the right amount of stimulation that I needed for at least make me think and feel in a normal way, but with enough attention to actually be focused for on the same task for a couple of hours.
Yeah, I've tried. I had tried off-label use, but uh, the modafinil I feel is calmness. Like it's just calm, focused, clear. You know,
Yeah.
like I don't have the same like like the go like the same like the push of like of Ritalin, but
Well, there's something that I really enjoy about this Ritalin, this methylphenidate. It was the dose was super small because it was for kids, and the
mm,
slow release effect was keeping that anxiety at a very low level.
right, right.
It was like giving me the right reinforcement continuously on time for keeping me focused. I really recommend it for those that has ADHD and they are still like trying to find the right compound. And my favorite, I'm not taking it now in the Netherlands, but at one point I will find it again. My favorite neotropic, it's mate, the Latin American drink. Have you ever?
Oh, dude, yeah, I've heard of this. You mean yerba mate and like
Yeah, exactly.
the teas?
Yeah, do I have a mate here?
Can you get it here? I mean, it's just
Yes,
tea. It's
there
just
is
tea,
a
right?
delivery
Like, what is it?
service. No, I leave it in the kitchen. Yeah, there is a delivery service that you can order the huge package of 1 kilo of yerba
No,
mate.
it's just tea. Like, what is it?
Yeah,
It's just
actually,
tea, right?
we could think in mate as a tea. It's a different kind of plant. It's mate. That's the name. Um, its the name is Paraguansis. Well, I don't
Like,
remember the
can
taxonomical
you
name.
can you buy it at like Jumbo? No, right?
You can
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that probably if you go to one of those expat supermarkets, uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
one of them they are gonna have it. There are like two big communities in the world that they drink mate. One is Argentina, obviously. Then you have well Uruguay and Paraguay. Actually, mate is originally from Paraguay, and Uruguayans, people from Uruguay, they are huge fans of mate. Probably
So what's the deal with mate? Like, what's the deal? I mean, is there some other compound other than caffeine in there that's making?
Mainly, it has theophylline. It's the same stimulant that you are gonna find in tea, but it's in much bigger concentrations. And theophylline, it's more stimulant than caffeine itself. The thing it's in cafe in coffee, you are gonna find much more caffeine that the amount of theophylline that you are gonna find in a tea. But
Mhm.
in the case of mate, you have a lot of theophylline. Maybe there could be some little bit of theobromine, but I'm not so sure about that.
Right. No, yeah, because like so personally, so I drink a lot of green tea.
Well, that's another good example. Yeah, that's a very good
Yeah,
one.
so I like the theanine caffeine balance.
Yeah.
It's like it's much clearer and not so much of like the so right now my morning routine is like I'll take 1 teaspoon of coffee and 1 teaspoon of green tea because I want the caffeine, but I also want that the theanine balance to like kind of
Nice.
keep me balanced.
Yeah, creatine
So
is
like
another good option for sure.
so actually, like I learned something interesting because you brought up ADHD. If you take like so they did an experiment where they took rats like
Mm-hmm.
like young adolescent rats, right, and they deprived them of physical play,
Mm-hmm.
right, and what they found was like it reduces the cortical the size of the cortex,
Mm-hmm.
the cortical development gets like reduced, and if you and then you take those rats and you give them Ritalin,
Uh-huh.
they behave like
Ooh,
normal rats,
interesting.
right? So like people are pushing like more and more this idea that children should be like not be allowed to play and do all these other like physically demanding kind of like dangerous things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then and then they're like, oh, this person can't concentrate, we should just pump them full of ADHD. So like it's weird, no, because I was reading, because like I'm working on the drugs data set, right?
Oh yeah.
And I've been reading so many of those bloody reviews, right? And I was just like, holy crap, because there are some reviews they're like, okay, I put my 4-year-old on 30 milligrams of methylphenidate, and I'm like, what the
Why?
I'm, and I,
No.
and I'm like, what the hell? Like how is that okay? Like that's craziness,
Who was the doctor that
dude.
permitted that? Yeah, no, no.
I read some insane reviews. Like I've also read some heartbreaking ones. Like one guy, his review was like he lost his wife and his daughter in like like a fire or something, and then he like fell into a depression and he wanted to kill himself, and he took his medication, and then he was writing a review about that medication. So I was like, Jesus Christ, dude, this working on this project has been heartbreaking. It's like reading
There are
because like
some
reading all these
stories
things,
that is like, oh my
uh,
god, yeah.
it's crazy. But like anyway, I'm almost done with that, and well, can I show you my report, or should I just submit it first?
No, you can show me your report. Yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
oh, great.
I already think that I said that in one of the lessons in one of the last classes. I as a student, I felt so frustrated when there is no way to know if you are doing the things right or wrong, but actually you have to submit your your assignment and keep your fingers crossed, and
Yeah.
probably then you discover at when that it was too late, that you were not doing what the professor was expecting. Yeah, and I don't see the point of that. So yeah, you can like
Okay.
make
Well,
like pre-submissions and send me the your work
I
by
mean,
email. I will check it.
I already basically finished it, so I'll just send it to you anyway, and
Excellent.
so you can see it. But like, so anyways, back to this related to the project, but like psychiatric medication. Okay. Uh, there's a huge range, obviously. Like
Ooh.
they do all kinds of things. Like they are super helpful. They're abused. Um, uh, it seems to me that like for a lot of these psychiatric medications, we don't really know what the hell they're doing. Like, is that a
In
fair
many
statement?
cases, yeah, it's not total. We are not totally sure about what is happening there, and there's some evidence that a lot of medications that we were totally sure why they were working. Actually, at some point, it was discovered that that was not the full explanation of what was happening in the brain. It happened with antidepressants, with SSRIs, the selective serotonin
Right.
reuptake inhibitors. That's actually their name, but it seems like the compound itself, it could be active too, and there's other hypotheses of why they're like producing these antidepressant effects. So yeah, it's a great mystery. Sometimes we have some answers, but yeah, it could be the case that those answers are actually just there for making us feel no so dumb. But yeah, actually, what we know is that at like a general perspective, at the general macroscopic point of view, the behavior of that patient, it's getting better. But yeah, the small insight of why that is happening, sometimes it's not so clear.
Yeah, and it also like you have to, some people have to try 3, 4, maybe 10 different therapists and different drugs and different doses before they find something that works for them. I
Yeah.
was I was super lucky. Like my therapist, like, man, that guy really knocked it out of the park with it, because I was like, damn. But I was gonna ask you was that so actually, I can tell you that. So there was a time in my life, there was a time I was having a very bad time of it, right? I was pretty, I was thinking about, I was constantly having suicidal thoughts, and uh, like I was in college actually, my first degree, and I just wasn't like, I was just miserable, and I can trace my path from there to now. I can tell you it started with one heroic psilocybin trip, right? I was like, cause it was weird, cause like I knew I had to do something. I was like, I have to do something, or I'm going to kill myself. Like
Yeah.
that, I
There
was at
there's a
that
point
point.
in which it's not an option anymore. It's like I have to do
Right,
something.
right, right.
Period. Yeah.
So I was in America, and I've done myself, and I could, and my and there's no way I could get like go to a therapist and start a whole therapy thing, because I couldn't afford it, right?
Mm.
Because America's expensive. And
Because
I was
United
like,
States. You know?
exactly. So I was like, fuck, I have to try something. And then I was like, you know what? Let's just try this, right? Let's just try it, okay? And I took like a pretty really big dose, and I had one of the most like, because for the first time in my life, I it showed me that there's a different way to think about the world. Like the way I'm thinking
You
about
can
it is
choose
not the
how
only
to
way.
perceive that in many different ways. They are
I
all right in
that
their own way, but yeah, yeah.
It seems so obvious when you think about it, but like when you're stuck in that loop
Yeah,
of,
it's totally impossible to see it from
it's
inside. You
impossible.
have to
It's
be.
impossible to see. It's impossible to see from the inside, and then you're like, wait a minute, you mean there's another perspective?
It's
And
like, whoa,
then,
whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you
well, there's
telling me
no
that I
way.
can be like, yeah, analyze everything in a different way? For sure. Yeah, yeah.
And then you start, and then I started this long and arduous journey of like trying to figure my shit out. And then like with my with psychologists and with therapists, I was able to like get my shit together and
Nice,
actually become someone that I'm like, that I'm proud of, right? So
nice.
like these plants, isn't it weird that our brains have just the right receptors to fit just the right compounds?
Well,
So
that's always something that it called my attention, in the sense that it's not weird that there are other compounds in our environment that could fit in those receptors, because you can have so many different sequences of amino acids, that at some point you are going to create these pockets, these active spots where molecules combine. That at some point there's going to be a molecule in the world that can bind there, so it's going to act.
also it could be like a co-evolutionary process,
Yes, for
right?
sure. And there's other mysteries that, for me, it's something that we should like really focus our attention at some point, like DMT. It's present in every living being in which we try to find DMT. It was there. So it's in plants and it's in animals. Okay, and that's okay, that's weird enough in the sense that we don't share so many molecules in common. Okay, and okay, maybe that could be enough, but no, actually it's a psychoactive compound. That's even like weirder. And okay, but yeah, maybe it's a psychoactive compound present in plants and animals, but maybe it shouldn't have like a very special effect, or even the message of this psychedelic experience, it could be something not so, I don't know, meaningful. But no, it's super strong, it's super meaningful, and the message is always related with life, with nature, with love, and being someone better at some point in your life, and try to heal yourself. So that makes everything even like, yeah, totally unbelievable.
I think what for me one of the most powerful aspects is like the feeling of, that feeling of not being alone, right?
Exactly.
Like because we're stuck in this physical body, right, for the most part, and we have so few experiences where we feel like we are outside and beyond this shell that we have. Like when you're with somebody, like when you love someone, you can have the experience you have like but this like for me, one of the strongest experiences is that like knowing, it's like knowing that my actions, like I'm not an island, right? Like,
Mm,
and my actions matter. Like they impact people around me, they impact the world, and they're important.
hmm.
Like I'm not just a floating head in the universe, just like by myself. That was really helpful for me. And what's the deal with all the the geometric shapes. That seems very pretty common.
Oh well, there's a lot of new discoveries in that field. Not so many publications, but something that everyone in the psychedelic scientific world is talking about. It's that you have in your visual cortex different layers. Each one of those layers has precise like functions, or it's prepared for detecting specific patterns. One of the Nobel prizes in the 60s, it was for these researchers that they discover different kind of activities at different layers. The first layer, it only fires when the certain lines with the precise orientation pass through your eyes and trigger these neurons. So there are neurons, or like family of neurons prepared just for reading lines that are, I don't know, at 45
Mm,
degrees, some like a horizontal, other verticals, different kind of orientations.
yeah.
Then the second layer combines signals from the previous layer, trying to create contours. So it's the border, it's just like the shape of the object that you have in front of you. And on the third layer, then you start to combine these contours with colors, and the process of identifying the object happens. And if you train an artificial neural network, a fully connected um, neural network, what you can see if you train this architecture for detecting different objects based on images, and you try to segment what is happening at different uh, levels of depth, you will see that actually what this artificial neural network is doing is replicating that same behavior that we see in living beings. That at some point you only start to figure out the orientations of just part of the drawing, and then at the very like final stage of the network, you are taking the decision of what kind of object do you
Hmm.
have, with everything in the middle that we were just talking about. So psychedelics, what they do, very characteristic uh, aspect of their activity, is that they reduce the alpha band in the brain activity. The alpha band is, if we think in the activity in the brain as an audio signal, like a song file or something like that, because actually what you are doing there is pretty similar what you do with the microphone. You're just having an input signal based on some kind of current, or yeah, but yeah, it's you could think in as a microphone. So thinking that you are recording a song, it has sense too. So in the same way that in an audio signal you have like high frequency, medium frequency, and low frequency. So in the low frequency you have the drums, and I don't know, the high frequency maybe you have an electric guitar or something like that. In the brain you have alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and so on, and they have like very precise range. I don't know. For example, low range in audio is between 20 and 200 hertz for saying something. Okay, alpha it's between 8 and 12 usually. And what we know about alpha is that it's present there for keeping those brain processes tasks that shouldn't be how do you say it, that you shouldn't be aware of, or they shouldn't be part of the consciousness.
Hmm.
So if you think in the brain as a computer that it has to do a lot of different calculations just for showing you windows, the graphical interface of
Yeah.
what you're using, but actually there's a lot of transistors firing for making that calculation possible. With the brain, is the same. Consciousness is the graphical user interface of the brain, but there is a lot of other things happening, and you are just perceiving the results. So everything that is happening in the brain and it shouldn't be part of the consciousness, it's covered with alpha waves. At some point, psychedelics, what they do is they reduce these alpha waves, so a lot of stuff that you shouldn't be seeing are in front of your eyes. So the theory says that all these geometrical patterns that you have there, it's like scanning lines or like reference patterns that our brain has for detecting objects. So what you are doing, what you are seeing, the raw processing of the different visual layers of the visual cortex in front of your eyes. There is this Google algorithm, deep deep dream.
Deep dreaming.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you say it, see that, it's like, oh my god, this is how a trip on LSD looks like. And what they are doing, it's this same thing that I'm telling you. they are taking these layers, like it's a heat map of the different patterns that the neural network is trying to find at different profundity levels of the architecture. So yeah, basically we are that algorithm that creates super hallucinogenic effects. It's based on how we think that hallucination should be working, and from a
Mm.
biological point of view, so it has sense.
Right, right, right. That's like so. I mean, some,
And that's something interesting for example, you are not gonna be able. This is a very like dumb quote, like sentence, but if you analyze it, there's a lot of very important meaning in it. You can't recognize something that you have never seen before.
mm,
There's this experiment in which there is this very strange, like black and white shapes. If you show it to a kid, the kid will see like two dolphins jumping or something like that. If you show it to an adult, the adult will realize that actually it's two people having sex. But the
mm,
kid can't recognize sex because he have never seen sex before. And an adult, it already has like very precise patterns for recognizing that because it's important in their lives. So when we say that psychedelics are showing you what you need to see, or they are showing you something related with something that you are worried or obsessed or like thinking about that in the last days, it's because probably you already have that kind of patterns already prepared because you are looking that in your daily life. And if
mm,
psychedelics are putting that into evidence, they are showing you what your mind is prepared for looking for in the reality.
mm. So
That's
like
yeah.
like one of them like so I've been practicing meditation for a long time, and it's like for me, like taking psychedelic and in conjunction with meditation. So like it's like it's been a really incredible
We have a
combination.
paper about that in which that was a work from Rocio Vivot. She was a member of our lab. Another one of great success papers from Edson and Kokuko. I was part of that work too. They were measuring the different brain activity of professional meditators, people who was doing meditation for 10 or 12 or 20 years. We were trying to figure out the different like mental patterns in during that meditation, and actually many of them were comparable, like were very similar to the ones that we can see in psychedelics. So yeah, meditation, people who really know how to do it, they are producing a mental state that
So
is in some way similar to having psychedelics.
so the last time I took psilocybin, I was in a sauna,
Hmm.
and I was meditating. I was meditating in the sauna, and one of the it's a very incredible experience. Like I could feel every single drop of sweat coming. Like I could feel it coming out of my pores. Like I could feel every single because I practice a lot of mindfulness meditation.
Hmm.
So I just did the same thing I do every day, just with psilocybin, right? And that it just added to that intense experience of that moment. Every single moment, from moment to moment, it's like boom, boom,
Boom,
boom.
for sure.
It's really quite something. Anyway, Federico, this has been almost 2 hours. I want to be I want to be respectful of your time.
No, please don't
Uh,
worry. It was super interesting and super fun.
thank you so much for sitting down with me today and just talking about all this stuff. Like, we should definitely do this again
For
soon. Like,
sure, for sure. There I have much many other stories and research that we are doing.
absolutely, absolutely. Maybe like, yeah, definitely. Like, absolutely, for sure. Thank you so much
Well,
for your
thanks.
time, and I'll see you.
Thank you for joining me in this conversation. I hope you got something out of it. And until next time, catch you around.